Well, we are certainly going to go on an interesting journey today. A memory, a sort of a remembrance sort of thing, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Yes, we are. My goodness. And for you new listeners, this is going to be, as she mentioned, a remembrance. So, somewhat of a reenactment, I would say, but we're going to go through my past life known as Alexander. It includes the contracts before that he was born, his life, and then the after the death spiritual meeting that was the end of his life. So let's start with the day of the regression as it unfolded. But I have to ask you, listeners, I need your help. For this one episode, you all know that I have the voice of a woman named Grace. But for a few moments, I need you to forget that. And instead, I need you to imagine a man in your life, perhaps, that has a deep sounding voice, like his voice is coming out of his chest. He's tall, about 6'5". He's heavily muscled. He's athletic, perhaps like a strong athlete. He has shoulder length blonde hair and blue eyes. He's really handsome, gals. And I need you to please think of someone in your life that kind of fits that description to be my Alexander. And don't think of the voice that you're going to hear as being me. That's the easiest way for us to do this, because otherwise you're just going to hear a girl's voice, and that's just so boring. So if you can help me with that, greatly appreciated. Because once again, I need to step into the shadow of the memory of his life. And I promise that I'm going to do my best not to get emotional. And if you all are ready, I'm ready.
All right, so we're going to go back to the beginning of this particular session that we had in my office and sort of reenact it from memory. And don't be surprised if there isn't some emotions that come right back up. So first of all, I would like you to go back to that memory, Grace, that you're going to step into the shadow, be in the comfy big blue chair.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And allow yourself to completely relax your body and just take some nice deep breaths and being able to access Alexander again because it's in her akashic record. So there will always be a record of his life that is a part of her. So we're going back into the akashic records to remember that life. And as you relax and you're doing some deep breathing and your spiritual group is here helping to guide you along the way, tell me, what is the first thing that you remember? What do you begin to see and perhaps even feel?
You know, the thing that is haunting me is the vision, and it's a recurring image of me looking at the handle of this large sword, and it's all I can see at the moment. And there's a round mirror on it about the size of your thumbnail. And I look at that, and when I see that, I am positive that something bad associated with this has happened. Something tragic has happened. Someone has died. Or worse yet, I have made a really bad choice, and I don't know what it is. I don't understand it, but all the anxiety in my life seems to be connected to this. Because when I look at this sword, my palms get sweaty, my mind starts to go, the anxiety starts to take over. And every time I think of this image, it just takes over my mind.
Just remember that now that image is truly just a memory that's in the history books, in your personal history books. And that image has also been healed. So take it from that image and share what the journey was, how you went from that memory into Alexander and through his life. So let's just take some good deep breaths here.
Okay.
And just begin to see yourself in a movie theater, and you're seeing the movie again, like we watch movies again sometimes. And you're just going to share what you see on the screen and how it plays out. So where are you right now in your mind? What are you seeing?
The first thing that I'm aware of is that I'm in a place that I can't identify. Like, I'm not on Earth. I want to say it's a room, but that really doesn't really fit what I'm experiencing. I want to say that I'm in a cloud. I know that sounds strange, but that's how it feels. It doesn't really fit, but it's kind of how it feels. And as I just stand here for a second, and as I just sort of look around, I realize that I am my soul. I'm not a human yet. I am like mist. And I'm participating, no physical body. I'm frequency and I'm mist. And it's a very odd experience to have because I don't understand it. It's not something I've experienced before, but inside of me, when I like connect to my soul, like if I kind of really focus on the inside, I feel very like complex, like frequency that's very complex. And I can feel my connection with the divine source and divine frequency. And I'm aware of my soul. The awareness is kind of beyond what would fit into my human head. But I'm participating at a meeting, a spiritual meeting, and the divine source is here. Divine source has just arrived. There's some angels that I recognize are there to have an awareness of what's going to kind of transpire between myself and others. I become aware that there are other souls arriving for this spiritual meeting. And I don't really have a good way to describe it. I can't articulate it well enough, but it totally makes sense. It's a cosmic meeting that's going on, and it's a good thing. There's not a negativity associated with it. And the new arrivals are all different frequencies, and they appear as mist as well, but I can tell you, I can recognize these frequencies. I know who some of them are, and some of them I don't know. The ones that I know, I can tell I've been with them before. And I'm really excited that they're agreeing to be with me again. It is kind of a profound assembling of souls that have came together after many lifetimes so that my life will be a certain way. And some of the people are going to become my relatives. They're acknowledging my frequency. And my parents are there. And they kind of move into my aura, like into my mist. And their frequency passes through mine. And as that happens, there is a joining. And I kind of tip forward, and they do, and their contracts that are being signed. They're agreeing to be my parents, check. My siblings, check. People that are going to be important in my life, check. And then they are starting to kind of move away from me. My gender has been determined. I will be a boy, the memory of Alexander, as well as my physical attributes. I would be tall and athletic. And the location on the planet where this will all occur is Roman territories. And I'm just sort of getting used to, this new physical body that I'm going to have when I become aware that there's a group of about 28 beings that have came forward and they're asking to be recognized. And they're putting forward a proposal that in their lives, this is so profound. They have asked if I would be willing to murder them. Initially, there was just quiet and calm in my frequency. It was a surprise. I expected to have a big reaction. I was really not aware of any of their patterns. But then on a spiritual level, contracts were signed. It was done and then integrated into my personality and physical being on a DNA level. I would say that it happened really fast. There were not really emotions in the room, just an awareness that was around me and them saying, thank you. I was concerned from my vantage point when I saw this happening, like, is this going to negatively affect us? Like, are we okay agreeing to murder people? And they're telling me all is well, and it is very calm. But it was quickly made aware that it would be a great sacrifice on my behalf if I would be willing to do this, because these souls needed the soul growth that only comes from this type of end to a life. They shared with me that on a spiritual level, they would know their whole life that it would be an early end. It would allow them to grow as much as possible through their entire life, knowing that it would be cut short. Ultimately, the contracts were signed, and there were no further details that I became aware of, and things moved on. I next became aware that the person that would be my wife had arrived. Although she was only missed, I recognized her vibration immediately from other lifetimes, and I was really, really happy that she was signing on to ultimately be with me. I love this soul so much. I'm excited. My frequency is vibrating like crazy. I'm just looking forward to this life, and let's get this going. I was aware that there was just a skeleton of the opportunities. Not every detail of my life was being contracted. Just a skeletal, kind of like the outline, the framework. And I was really excited and looking forward to being born. I'm going to be born in a matter of days, and I'm super excited. But then the veil between here on earth and the other side is being lifted, and it closes the awareness. And that's what I was noticing at that moment, that the spiritual meeting had come to an end.
That is an amazing awareness. It's very rare to have that kind of awareness in a regression experience. So it was really awesome that that happened, because that creates such a healing experience. So then let's now go through his actual life if you feel ready to do that.
Okay, here we go. Settling into his life. So listen from his voice specifically now, if you're not already doing it. Alexander. The first thing that I became aware of in this other time is that I'm standing in a long type corridor. One side of it, there's arches leading out to a garden, and behind me is a long wall. And I'm standing kind of in the middle where I can look both ways. And I'm looking down, and at that moment in time, I am standing and looking at the sword, and it causes me to panic. And I feel doom. I feel overwhelming doom. The feeling sweeps over me, and suddenly I'm having a hard time breathing. I know any moment something tragic is going to happen, and I'm associated with it. I can feel it in the air. It's like electrified. I have goosebumps all over my body. The frequency is causing my skin to actually pulsate. And I have tingles running all over my body, fear shooting down my spine. I'm absolutely panicked.
Okay, Grace, let's take another nice deep breath and step back. Let's remember this is just a memory. This memory has already been healed. So let Alexander continue telling you the story. But remember, you're a sacred witness. So tell me what happens next.
Okay. I am male, but I need you to kind of back me up out of here for a few minutes, because I can't breathe and he is almost having a heart attack. So I'm trying my hardest to only see it on a screen, but I need to just take a step back here just for a second. And I have to focus harder on trying to do this only on a screen. Okay, give me a second here.
That's all right. Just take some deep breaths, settle into your body.
Oh, Lord, easier said than done.
It's kind of like in the story, The Christmas Carol, when Scrooge had to go through all of the ghosts of Christmas past. He had to witness it. He had to witness that life. And so that's what you're doing now.
Okay, so I'm going to step into his shadow again. And I am going to look at this little mirror on the sword, and I can see the anxiety enveloping me again. And then I realize someone is screaming his name. Alexander, Alexander, Alexander. She's just screaming, save me. Alexander, please. Extreme fears gripping my heart. I can barely breathe in his time. I can feel his panic, and it is a lot. So I know you're telling me that I need to be a narrator and not a participant.
Mm-hmm.
But his life does that to me.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want you to imagine yourself now just be on the wings of an eagle. And you have flown back through time and you're watching his life unfold. So just give me a play-by-play description of what happens.
Okay. I'm holding on to the eagle and I'm leaning forward as we fly back in time. At every pump of the wings causes us to go further back in time. And I'm trying to be very calm and peaceful. And as I arrive, I realize that we have arrived at a different point in time. Thank goodness. Maybe I can stop this tragedy from happening.
Where did you land? Let's go there first.
I am at the palace.
Where?
In Rome.
Are you an emperor, or what is the role you're playing in your life?
I'm aware that my name is Alexander, and I am a paid assassin.
Do you work for the Emperor Alexander?
I do, but I'm not a gladiator. Those fools are evil. They play with their victims and torment them. They can take hours to kill one man. I don't do that. I take my job very seriously. When I am assigned a criminal, I do not mess around. I finish the job very quickly. My blade is very heavy. It is very sharp. My entire goal is to kill them in one swipe. There is no escape and no option for them to be reprieved. I am abnormally tall, overly muscled, very athletic, dangerous. My body and size is similar to the Hulk or the Rock, but very athletic. When I walk through the palace, people avoid me. I have a few friends, which is best, but everybody else avoids me. I'm blessed with beauty, as they say. I have longer hair and blue eyes, and I'm a favorite of the ladies. And I have my pick of any and all of them.
So what is your life like being that kind of a person?
My life is perfect. I have a job that I enjoy, and I have everything that I want. I have my beautiful wife. I can ask for no more.
So where are you going now?
At the moment, I'm in the training hall, and I have just finished. So I'm going to be going to the baths.
What are the baths? Tell me what the baths are and what happens there.
The Roman baths, a lot of things happen there, but I will be massaged with special spirit oils, and my sweat will be scraped off and saved to be sold to others. My sweat is very valuable. I am the best of the best. I'm the best at what I do. A champion. A champion sweat is of great value.
Yes, it is. Actually, that was quite a custom back then. All right. So what happens next?
As I'm leaving the field and headed toward my favorite bath, I go through some curtains, and suddenly my arm is grabbed by a woman's hand and I'm pulled into the corner behind a silk drape.
Who grabbed you?
Oh, it's the queen. I despise the queen. She's absolutely the worst human being of all, not fit to be called a Roman. She coerces and tricks people into saying and doing things that they do not want to do, most of all the emperor. She's always making him do things he doesn't want to do. And she's a liar, and she's dangerous. And I hate her, and I hate it more that she touched me.
Well, what does she want with you?
Oh, she's saying words to me. She's trying to entice me. She's wrapping her body around me. She is pulling like a white scarf around my neck. And she's making me an offer to be with her privately. She would like my body, but I want to vomit. I am searching my mind right now for some kind of an excuse to get away from her, but she knows that I am very fit and that I'm done for the day. And I have had many encounters with many beautiful women. She sees herself as the most beautiful of all. And she sees that she can tell from my face, she can see that I'm lying. She considers herself such a great prize. I see here that I have insulted her because I have no interest in ravishing her. I'm staring at her and I have no emotion on my face. But she comes closer to me. She wraps herself around me, closely trying to grab my body, and I'm reaching out and I'm holding her hands away from me. I do not want her to touch me. I hate this. But she's whispering something.
What is she saying?
Oh, she's giving me an ultimatum. I can't believe she's saying this. She's saying that I have to lie with her or she will charge my wife with heresy, which is a death sentence. My mind, I can't even think straight. She's talking about my beloved Alice Sophia, and anxiety is overwhelming my brain.
Tell me about your beloved one.
She's my heart and the love of my life. And I will die for her without hesitation, and I will also kill for her without hesitation, and I will enjoy killing for her.
Well, what about all the other women you mentioned earlier?
Oh, I am Roman. It is my right. Women are free to me, as many as I want. I do not care about any of them. If they ask for me, I oblige. I owe them nothing, and they are nothing to me. Nothing but passion. But my beloved Alice Sophia is like my tiny sweet flower. She is smaller than the rest of the women, and I have always been very gentle and cautious with her. I would never treat her like those other women who demand much different treatment. No, she's very fragile and gentle and beautiful and mine.
So, how do you react to the queen? Her proposal and her threat?
I'm overwhelmed. She has given me until morning to make up my mind, although she has really given me no choice. I'm so panicked right now. I have to get home. My mind is swimming in anxiety. I'm thinking as I exit the palace of all the ways I will murder the queen, and I'm going to enjoy this so much. But one step at a time here. First, I will go home. I will find my beloved Alice Sophia. We will pack. We will depart the city tonight. No one will find us. I will take her to a safe place. It seems like it takes me forever to cross the city. But before I realize it, I'm at my front door, just standing there. I can tell she's not here. The sun is starting to set, and I've gone inside the living room. There's long shadows that are cast across the main room, and it's very eerie. I can tell that she's just not there. I don't even need to call her name. And I realize they've taken her away. They took her before I could get there. It's too late. The house is spooky quiet, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to put my head in my hands, and I'm going to just think about this terrible situation. And I wish I had shown her more value when she was with me. Oh, I never said what was in my heart. I always kept quiet. I can't think. Anxiety's just like racing through my body and up my spine. I cannot think straight. It feels like anxiety is going out of my sweat glands. It's just going all over me. And I can't even think in a complete sentence right now.
Okay, take a deep breath. Let's just take a deep breath. Settle down. Okay, allow the next memory to come up.
I remember that my father-in-law is someone that I always rely on. He's a reputable man and a good friend. And he knows many people at court and the palace. And he's very well known. I'm going to head for his house. My mind is in turmoil. I really want to run, but I'm too dignified for that. I really regret not stopping to grab a horse. I'm going to have to walk, and I'm not happy about that. I cross the city as quickly as I can. I'm looking for him, and I find him out in the stable area. He competes in chariot races at the games, and I know that this sounds strange, but he's out in a garage of sorts, and he's checking a repair that was made to his racing chariot because the games are coming up. So I pull him aside and I tell him about the situation with his daughter and the queen's proposal and her threat and that Alice Sophia is missing. And he listens patiently. And he's thinking about it. He says he knows my status at court. And he points out that not many people will challenge me. And moreover, he has no control over issues at the court. But he says he feels confident that by the morning, it will resolve itself. And the queen is going to come to realize that this is a disastrous threat and it could backfire on her and that we should wait until morning. He thinks that by morning, things will resolve themselves.
Okay, can you stop for one moment and describe the scene that is around you?
It's evening and the sky is just changing from blue to gray, and there are clouds and sort of what remains of the sunset. And I'm standing in a large courtyard, and there are some horses being groomed in small stalls kind of around the edges. And there's some slaves that are lighting the lanterns for everybody to see.
Does your father-in-law have anything else to say to you?
He feels really strongly that it'll get resolved before the games. But then I realized that, hey, I have work to do tomorrow. There's stadium games. And I have an entire book of criminal executions tomorrow before the games begin. So I kind of need to wrap this up and go home and prepare myself mentally for the games. And I kind of decide what I'm going to do. But you know what? If the queen wants it, she can have it. Nothing is worth risking my beloved. I'm awake most of the night trying to think about this problem, and I just know that I'm going to go in the morning and I'm going to resolve this issue. I go to the palace early in the morning, and I'm looking for the queen. I go into the big room where the criminal names will be called and assigned to the executioners. And I notice the queen off to the side. She's waiting for me. But I find that strange, very strange. Why is she doing that? She's not behaving like she should normally behave. She's never done that before. And I'm feeling alarm at her weird behavior. Certainly, I will refuse to talk to her in the emperor's presence because there's a protocol and she's breaking the protocol. I make an excuse and I go down the hall near her direction. And as I pass, she signals me and I duck behind a drape. And I let her know I have made a decision and that I am offering her my services. As long as my wife is returned, I agree. And she insists that we have to do it now. I'm really confused. In the morning, here, before the emperor arrives, now I know she's behaving very strangely. And the emperor's going to be here anytime, and she's demanding this now. All right. I have to meet the emperor soon. So even though the timing is all wrong, I just want to get this over with. My visit with her is quick, and my job is done, and my mind turns immediately for my wife. The queen departs. I go out into the big room, and I take my normal spot. And as I stand there, the emperor arrives. I'm gathering my thoughts. I need to work today.
Okay, take a deep breath. Bring your energy down a little bit. Just calm your center so you can continue to let this unfold. So let's go into what happens next.
They are making an announcement and calling everyone like myself to the big hall to meet with the emperor and distribute the criminals. Those on my list are wailing in despair as soon as they hear my name because they know their fate is sealed. But I'm kind of oblivious to it. I'm watching the door. My wife is going to arrive any moment. And I have my plans all set. As soon as I can get my hands on her, I will whisk her away so we can leave the city immediately. And my mind is kind of wandering because the queen is kind of wandering around herself and I don't know what she's up to. But everybody stops their activities. So she's entering the room and she's strutting and she's looking at me and she goes and she sits by the emperor and I'm not comfortable at all. And my mind, I'm just sorting through options as I review choices and I revise my plan for escape. And I'm just kind of like nervous. And then I hear them calling a name. And I realize they're calling my beloved Alice Sophinia's name on the criminal list. She's been charged with heresy. And she's being called right on to my criminal death list. How can this happen? She's been charged with heresy as threatened. But how can this be? I can't get my mind around it. I have done whatever was asked. I have fulfilled my obligation. The queen must release her. I agreed. It was bargained. I look around, but slowly I become aware that my wife has been added to my death list. How can this be? My blood feels like it's ice. I can taste adrenaline in my mouth. I can't focus my eyes right now. I can't even react. I refuse to give the queen any satisfaction. She has betrayed me. My thoughts are drowning in anxiety, and I become aware that my hands and palms are sweaty, and I cannot think beyond the words, how will I save her? Gosh, how? The list of death orders are complete and final, and my list includes my wife's name, and I immediately determined I refuse to kill my wife. I will die first before I would ever kill her. Nobody has reacted. People are leaving the room. And it grows really quiet, and I realize I'm standing alone in this big room. And for the first time in my life, I am helpless. It's a strange feeling. Absolutely helpless. I decide to go back towards the criminal holding areas in an attempt to break her out. I'm walking down the corridor when I realize this is the moment that I have been seeing over and over and over in my mind. I'm in that corridor that I first landed in. And I look down at my reflection on my sword. I can see the pain in my face, and I am just full of fear.
Okay, so I want you to remember to stay detached, watch it like a movie so you don't have to go through this experience again. Are you listening to me?
I am trying so hard. I am trying to do what you're asking me to do, but he just wants to move forward.
Okay, so one of the things I want him to be able to process through, he has his fear, but now it's time for him to also access his anger.
Oh, my heart is beating out of my chest. His heart is beating out of his chest. His head is banging, the pounding of his heart. And we're standing in the corridor. I'm looking at that mirror on my sword, and suddenly a woman's voice, my beloved Alisophenia's voice, horrified, pleading, screaming my name. She's screaming my name. Alexander, Alexander, save me. The terror in her voice is overwhelming my senses. It is my beloved. She's been thrown to the lions. I can hear the roaring. I can hear the snapping, the snarling. I can hear the attack. I can hear her soft screams becoming faint until it is over. It is over so quickly. I haven't even had a chance to move. My muscles, which are normally so strong and supple, are just frozen. I cannot move an inch. I realize that it's too late. And then I realize that I am going to murder something. The face is looking back at me from the mirror has changed to pure anger. I cover my eyes for a few moments as my mind races to make choices. And I am so overwhelmed. It feels like a heart attack. My anxiety is palpable. I can taste adrenaline in my mouth. I refuse to die before I murder her. I'm going to murder the queen. As Hammurabi says, eye for an eye.
Alexander, are you going to stop what you're doing? Are you going to follow through?
No one will stop me. I am passing all the guards. I am going up into the stadium. I am headed for the royal box. Everybody knows me, and I'm going all the way up there. And I have kind of carte blanche. As I arrive, the king kind of tips his head at me, and I go and I stand in front of the queen. She's sitting there. She's surrounded by guards. She has this smug look on her face like she's invincible. She tips her head at me like, what are you going to do? There's nothing that you can do. But I am carrying my biggest, sharpest sword, and I am holding it at waist height. It's very, very sharp. I sharpened it last night. It is deadly.
So what are you planning to do?
No one has noticed me except the queen. The guards are my friends, and no one has reacted. They trust me. I am authorized. They haven't even blinked an eye.
Alexander, how are you really feeling in this moment?
I have murdered her. Before she could react or scream, I stared her straight in the eye. She knew in that moment I will get my revenge for the death of my beloved Alice Sophia. She was so small, barely 100 pounds. She had beautiful, thin skin. She was so smooth and so fragile, and the lions immediately tore her to pieces. She never had a chance. The queen thought that she had won, but now she knows that at this exact moment that she did not win. I am holding the sword so tightly that my muscles are flinching. In that moment, she knew, and kind of like in slow motion, I rammed the sword straight through her torso. Her black heart was cut in half, and I pressed it upward. Her chest ripped nearly completely into two pieces. It's a big gaping wound. And I watched her face. I watched her mind as it briefly was aware and was able to process this outcome that she did not expect. And I watched the smile leave her face. Blood is spraying all over the royal box. Suddenly the guards react to save the emperor, but I don't care about him. I know him. He's a weak man. He's done nothing to me. So I'm just standing there motionless. I hand them my sword. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't resist. The royal box is full of blood, and they're taking the emperor out of the way. And I see her body on the chair, and I have to smile because she's nearly torn in half. She has bled to death, even though she was already sort of dead from the sword. But she's not smiling any longer. She will never betray me again.
What is going to happen to you?
I don't care. My beloved is gone. I have no desire to live any longer, a moment longer. I kind of realize I'm kind of shrinking. My shoulders are kind of slumped. My head is hanging. I feel so desperate. And I will be executed shortly. There's no need for a trial. Everyone saw the outcome. There were screams of shock all around that part of the royal box. And everybody knows. So I will be beheaded. I want this as soon as possible. I want to be dead so I can get over there so I can try to catch up with my wife on the other side. I must apologize to her for not saving her. I must hold her one more time. But they're really lagging and the executioner isn't fast, and I'm begging him to please do this now. But they're taking me down to the stadium to do it in front of everybody as a deterrent. I mean, really, who cares? Just get it over with. I'm suggesting that they use my sword. It's very sharp.
Okay, so what do you remember next?
I am dead. It is over. It didn't hurt. I didn't feel any pain. My job here is done, and I'm drifting away towards a golden light on the other side. And it's like the veil of time is lifting, and I'm joined by the energies related to the spiritual contracts. And surprisingly, my mother is here. Oh, dear mother, this is not what I expected. But I don't see my wife so far.
Grace, are you back or are you still with Alexander?
I'm back as Grace. He has faded away onto the other side, but I think I can still answer a few questions that you might have before he gets too far away from me.
Okay, so you talked about spiritual contracts. And from a previous session we had, do you recognize anyone at all. Like we know people that we have experienced things with in other lifetimes tend to reincarnate with us in different ways, shapes, and forms. And I'm wondering if you have run across any of these other people, and maybe the females or males or not, or whomever, they may be playing different roles in your life. But when a person looks into someone's eyes, they can feel and see the essence of that soul. And sometimes they can have a memory of who that person was and in their past life and who they are now as they're looking at them. So just take a moment and see, do you recognize anyone from this lifetime that was also in that past life?
Well, you're right. I do recognize some of the people from my current life from that life, specifically the Queen. I know exactly who she is. It will be a challenge in this life to ignore that because she doesn't remember anything about it. But her frequency is the same. And she is the same in her attitudes. She is a narcissist. She has a bully personality. She really hasn't changed. She's got no respect for others. She feels that she's the only person who matters at whatever cost. And I can see that she really hasn't changed or evolved much from that terrible life.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Surprisingly, my beloved Alla Sophia. She's here. She's my friend Pam. I recognized her immediately. Her frequency is undeniable. I have to tell you, when I first met Pam, we just immediately hit it off. Peas and carrots. We were together all the time. And something eerie happened about a week before this regression. And Pam had, our relationship was fairly new, and I hadn't been to her house before. And she invited me over to pick something up. And as I walked into her house, I was shocked that there was a realistic, large picture of two roaring lions on the living room wall. I stopped and I looked at that, and it was so creepy. And I had deja vu. And I stated it must be a past life thing. And she kind of laughed about that. And I said, but isn't it creepy? And she said, yeah, it is. But I just feel really drawn to them. I don't even know what it is. When I saw that picture, I just felt like I had to buy it and I had to put it in my home. They looked so familiar to me. But I tell you today, after having this memory of Alexander and their life and their relationship, I'm really completely surprised that she has this picture.
I bet.
Yeah, and I can kind of hear his voice in my head going, how can she have lions on the wall? And it was kind of strange because I didn't have this memory yet, but his voice was kind of annoyed saying that she has a lion in her home, and he was just not happy about this whole situation. And he kind of had a very kind of possessive and stern kind of attitude. Now I understand why he felt that way.
Okay, so knowing what you know now, how did this friendship with her unfold for you?
It was a fabulous friendship. So we were, as I mentioned, like peas and carrots. We were together all the time. She was my confidant. And I wanted so badly to share this memory with her, but you had warned me against it. You had said, that's my memory to have. And if she was to have this memory, it needed to not be from me, that it needed to be, in more of a clinical setting because of the level of trauma that she would obviously have. And I don't know how to describe it, but that feeling that I have with her, like, I don't know, at that time I called it woman's intuition. I just felt like I knew her from so many lifetimes. And I don't know if our listeners have ever had that experience where you meet somebody and you feel like you've just known them maybe forever.
You feel like you're meeting a dear old time friend.
Definitely.
Now, tell me a little bit more about the group of energies that you encountered.
Yes, because I'm on the other side now. So we're kind of having another little spiritual meeting where they're kind of reviewing the contracts that we went through. And, that is the group that I agreed to murder, which at the time felt so strange and awkward. Are all actually criminals, all actually deserved it. So there's been no weird, residual emotion associated with it. But they're here and they're offering me much thanks and appreciation for fulfilling the contract. And I'm aware that there's this strange kind of specific spiritual growth that they had waited many lifetimes for. And this was the life that gave them that opportunity. And it benefited them greatly. And it helped them, it kind of helped to launch them forward to have a quicker spiritual evolution while they were waiting to be murdered, and to explore greater spiritual options with a wider circle of souls. So some of them were spiritual friends to begin with, and then they made new spiritual friends while this was going on. They're all really happy, and they received a growth that was very unique, and they're thankful for that.
Okay, is there anyone else that you remember?
My father-in-law. My father-in-law in that life is my father-in-law in this life, although he's passed away. I've been with him before. He's a very quiet personality. And I enjoyed him in this life and in that life. And he's definitely someone I hope to be with again. I would recognize that frequency for sure.
So now do you see that there is a golden light? And how far can you see into that golden light? Are there any other people or energies that you need to recognize at this time?
The golden light opened as Alexander was departing, and he really wanted to leave. And he was fading into like an energetic mist as he was departing and entering the light. And I could see that his anger had slipped away. He was finding himself at peace.
And how has his being at peace now affected your life, whereas before it was almost like he was haunting you until you did this regression? So how is your life different now that he has had his healing and moved on?
It has been tremendous, because a lot of the anxiety that I had in this life that caused my palms to get so sweaty and my mind to get so mixed up, and my fear of my children, a lot of that has gone away. When they stole Alice Sophia away from me, when I was betrayed, it released a lot of emotions for me. And I feel spiritually healthier now. I feel like I don't want to leave. And I really wish I had ran into my children in this life. I think it would have been even better for me, but that didn't happen. But the fact that I was able to say to Pam, even though she doesn't remember it, I said to her in a quiet moment that I just want to tell you how much you mean to me, how much I love you, and how much I would do anything for you. And that gave me a great sense of peace to be able to say that to her, that had things been in my hands, I'd have done anything. I'd have killed anyone to save her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
although she didn't remember it, she just smiled and I do believe that on some level she accepted my apology, which meant so much to me.
Nice. And by having this anxiety slip away because Alexander became healed, and by subsequent regressions that you have had, it has enabled you to successfully be able to release the medications that you were on with the help of your doctor, but you were able to not have to have them anymore because this was such a healing for you.
It's true. And I don't know about the help of my doctor, but definitely the help of Kathryn Lehman. We were able to take the broken, fragmented jigsaw puzzle of my spiritual life and gradually start putting it back together again. And happily, I was able to go off all of my medications, and I haven't been on them for years. And I have to thank spiritual therapy for that. And you. Thank you very much, my dear.
You're welcome. And I do want the listeners to know this is not something you try at home, and you just don't go cold turkey. And you always seek medical advice before doing anything like that. So this has been quite a journey that we have relived, re-experienced, and thank you very much for sharing this with our listeners. And hopefully people out there will begin to realize that maybe some of this strange feelings, these feelings that they get from time to time, and they do not understand where they're coming from, this might give them some hope. And I also want to let them know, it occurred to me that they can be in an office setting, but they can also work with someone like myself. We can do it over Zoom or some type of other protocol that we could use. It doesn't have to be in the office. There's still help available for anyone, anywhere who needs it.
I completely agree with that. It's the safety of the person as yourself that really is the important part. Just don't do it alone.
Definitely. All right. So I think that wraps it up
That's
for today.
Thank you, everyone. You don't have to be Alexander anymore. You can go back to being yourself.
All right, thank you so much.
Have a great day. Welcome to episode 8. We have lots of Alexander questions from our listeners. So I say we jump right in here, Kathryn.
I say let's go for it.
Okay, our first question, it's actually a question/comment. A person feeling that I was kind of sharing other people's work. So let's start there. Let me sort of reiterate what I said in episode 1, that the words I have and the words that I'm sharing are not a revelation. These are my personal experiences that I'm sharing with you. So I am not trying to, walk over anybody's work or do anything like that. I'm only sharing my own personal experience and my experience with Clovistia. At times, I may be sharing somebody else's stuff because that's what she's telling me, but I'm not trying to share or copy anybody. These are just her words that she has shared with me. Everything that I share with you really is from my own personal experience. I live in this spiritual world that is ever changing. And these are not things that I have read before because she rarely allows me to read anything. Kathryn can vouch for that. My producer, Charlie, here can vouch for that. And truly it is my own experience. So I apologize to anybody that may feel that way or may feel that I might have overstepped or stepped on or stepped beside. Or additionally, I'm not trying to be better than anybody else. It's not a competition. I don't see it as a competition. It's not a race. Others have their own thoughts and opinions, which may or may not be similar to Clovistia. I guess it's all in the way that you look at the beginning and the end of it. So that's just it. I wanted to take a minute to clarify that.
And I would like to say something about that too. First of all, what the listeners need to know is there is no such thing as original information on the planet. This information has been out there in the ethers and has been channeled forth in many different ways, many different times. So, of course, everybody is sounding like everyone else. But I'll tell you one thing. I can vouch for Grace about not reading anything because all the things I've sent her, she says, Clovistia says, nope, I can't read it. So that has been my personal experience in regards to Chloe and Grace is like, what? You can't read this? Come on, So she is definitely in her own little world with Chloe and bringing forth her own authentic nature and her words with this. And of course, we're all humans. We all come from the same place. So yes, we're going to use some of the same words. That's just how it is. So thanks for the question, because that helps to bring a lot of clarity to the podcast.
I agree. Excellent question. I want to take just a couple of seconds here as well to introduce our actual producer. He sits in the background here all the time, and his name is Charlie. And to be honest, when we started our podcast, we were clueless. We didn't know who to call. We didn't know what to do. We had made some calls to certain people that were supposed to help us. And then they saw the content and it caused them to shy away and decide that's not content they were comfortable with. Our listeners may have experienced that in their own personal lives, that you want to share something with somebody and then you end up maybe losing a friend or losing a relationship. So we experienced that a whole bunch at the beginning of this. And I began to really dread opening my email because I didn't know who I was going to have each day as we were trying to put it together. But one day, this young IT professional knocked on my door and was willing to kind of step into our world. On one hand, I feel sorry for him because he didn't know. He didn't know anything about us. He didn't know anything about Chloe. Maybe this was for the better at the beginning. But I would like to introduce our producer. This is Charlie, who makes everything happen in the background.
Yay, Charlie!
Well, thank you for putting me on the spot, Grace. So, as you all heard, I am Charlie, the producer. The one that is always hiding in the background. And I just want to say that I am really thankful to be a part of this podcast.
Okay, I just want to thank Charlie for his patience in dealing with the two of us who've never done anything like this before. His own learning curve. If he didn't know an answer, man, he found out real quick. So he had no problem looking for assistance. And his ability to hang in there and learn something new and go on the roller coaster ride with us. So I am really honored and proud of Charlie for the work that he's done and that he is with us. So thank you, Charlie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We cannot give him enough credit here.
I can see him blushing in the camera.
I know. Where did he go? Talk about being in the shadows. Come on out, Charlie. Not as easy as it looks, folks. It really isn't. And, I have to say that Charlie, coming from an experience that was not particularly spiritual in nature, he kind of shared with me that he didn't think of it one way or the other. So he didn't have a positive or a negative. So he was kind of a blank slate when we started sharing things with him. So talking about Charlie, as I mentioned, I'm sort of in a spiritual world, and I don't know from day to day sort of how things will change. Charlie had a bit of a spiritual experience while he was editing our stuff. And he was editing Alexander. And his wife was in the room with him. So she was sort of following along as wives do to see what he was up to. And as they were having the Alexander experience, his wife began to cry. And she expressed that the queen had betrayed Alexander. And it had a big emotional impact on her. Charlie found himself looking around like, what the heck is going on with my wife? And towards the end of the Alexander experience, I had asked him if he could check with his wife and see if she had any questions or anything. I had discovered, as we've been going through this season, that I began to rely on her more and more. He would take stuff home, and first thing I would say is, tell me what your wife says. And I didn't know where that was coming from, but for some reason, I was putting a great value on her opinion. So when we got to this point and I said to him, does she have any questions? She had a question. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, she did have a question. It wasn't so much in regards to Alexander exactly. It was more like a question about the spiritual meeting that you had before. Her question was, during the spiritual meeting, you said you recognized some of the angels. Can you talk about that? Or did you recognize any of them?
And I thought to myself, what the heck memory is this woman having about my spiritual meeting with Alexander? So I had to think about that just for a minute, because this kind of stuff doesn't come out of the blue, folks. And I thought, okay, hold on. Let me just process this a little bit myself. So later in the day, my spiritual group had a question for Charlie, and I took him aside and I said, when you go home tonight with your wife, I want you to ask her a question, but I don't want her to edit the incoming information. So I want her mind to be a blank slate. Tell her, don't think of anything. I need the first thing that comes into her mind. Okay, so if the first thing that comes into her mind is a color, tell me the color. If it's a smell, tell me the smell. If it's a word or something, just don't edit the incoming information. Because I'm going to tell you a word, and I want her really raw reaction. And I told him the word is Martinique. And Charlie himself was like, oh, okay, Martinique. Okay. And so he went home, and at the right time, he sat with his wife and gave her the question. First, he did the same thing. He said, first thing that comes into your mind, don't edit any of the incoming information. Be really specific with that. This is the word. Initially, she just kind of looked around. Her eyes kind of darted back and forth. And then she began to cry. Because Martinique meant something to her, the same as Martinique means something to me. And I was just, oh my God. And I said, did she say anything else? Because I don't want to give her the answer. I want her to realize the answer herself. And so now I'm sort of waiting to see what veil of awareness might be lifted for her, because she was there. She was at my spiritual meeting. She was one of the angels that was there. And she knew that when she heard it, it resonated in her. The frequency made sense to her. And that's just amazing. And so I'm interested as the time goes on, if Charlie's wife becomes even more aware than she's already aware. There's already things that are happening in her mind that this is all brand new to her too. When she met Charlie, she had no idea that Charlie was going to bring home Clovistia. She had no idea or opinion about spirituality or religion or anything one way or the other. So kind of trying to take it slow with her, as well as Charlie, who's sort of in the fast lane by definition. But we'll see as time goes on. What else that Martinique remembers?
I find that this whole thing is interesting. You know, I've done group past life therapies before, and it's been interesting to see how sometimes the people who have come together in a group end up saying, oh, you were in my past life, or you were in my past life. You know you used to be my sister. And they have such amazing experiences. These were people who had never done past life therapy before or past life regressions. And I was just testing the waters to see how it would go and how they connected and were able to kind of support each other on this new spiritual journey. And so with Martinique, it's going to be interesting to see how she continues to unfold.
Very exciting. Very exciting. Sort of in connection with that, we did have a variety of emails associated with my spiritual home team. So I want to share something with you that I use every day. And I hope that it has as big of a benefit for you as it has for me, because I didn't know how to do this until Kathryn was kind enough to share it with me. And now I use it every day, all the time. I'm always looking for guidance from my spiritual home team. So I want you to look around yourself, and I want you to look at an electrical outlet. So part of it is the socket and part of it is the plug. The socket is going to be the question and the plug is going to be the yes or no answer. So for me, my outlet socket, you could call it a socket too, or an outlet. Mine, I visualize it as big. Mine's about 3 foot in diameter. It's a big bugger. I don't want any.
Yeah. Well, you got a big home team there, girl.
and I don't want to get it wrong. Okay. I'm an overachiever. And the question is the plug. So it's yes or no. So if it plugs in and if it stays plugged in, it's a yes. If it falls out, it's a no. So I was trying to understand a bit about my spiritual team. And Kathryn taught me this method of yes or no. I said, do I have one person that is my team? Maybe there's only one. And I plugged it in and it fell out. No, answer is no. Okay. So Kathryn was helping me. She said, try it again. I said 2, plug it in, falls out. No. Oh gosh, I have more than one. Plug it in, 3, falls out. Oh my gosh. I do actually have a home team here. 4, no. 5, yes. I have 5 angels that are with me, my mentors, my guides. I don't even know anything about these. And Kathryn said, why don't you ask them? Oh boy. Talking to the home team was a whole nother experience. So I said, is there one of you that's the leader? Plug it in. Answer was yes. Okay, so I have a ringleader. Okay. Who are you? I felt like she was female. And then I said, what is your name? And amazingly, the answer was Marie. And I could see that kind of in my mind. And I was really careful not to edit that so that I don't make it some other name or change it at all. So now I had Marie, so at least I knew the person to direct my questions and answers at. And she's been brave enough to stay with me all this period of time. She never left. And so she's the one that is the voice kind of in my head more so than the others. Although I will say that I have one that's with me. He's a male and he's like a wisecracker. So he's the sarcastic voice. I admit to being sarcastic, okay? But he just sort of encourages the sarcasm a little bit. And some of the others are, more in the shadows. I don't know them quite as well. But I will share for a second that I had a guide that was with me when I first learned about this. And this particular guide was like my heart. And I relied on him and I would ask him questions. I always ask Marie questions, but this was different. This relationship with him was very, very different. And he was really kind of on my side. He was the one that always would be on my side. They talk about the angel on one side and the devil on the other shoulder. Well, this was the person in my side. If somebody said something to me that I didn't think was right, he would say, "That's right. That was wrong. That shouldn't have happened." And I relied on him so much. But I woke up one day and he was sort of there, like in front of my mind. I don't know if any of you listeners have ever had that, where there's a question or something in front of your mind and you just can't shove it aside. You can't get it out of your mind. That was him. And he said, "I've got to leave." And I said, "Leave as in be back tomorrow?" And he said, "No, I've got my own lives to live. I've got to go." Oh my gosh, it was like tearing apart my family when he decided to leave. And I fought against it for about a week. And then finally he said, "No, really, I have to go. I'm going to be born in a couple of days and I've got to go." And he left. And it took me time after that and working with Kathryn to kind of put my team back together again. I felt like my star player has walked off the field and now I'm there. Not that I don't love the rest of you, especially Marie. But it was a loss. It was a spiritual loss for me when he had to go and live his own lives.
One of the things that, and this is how I look at it, Grace, you may not look at it this way. As I have evolved in my own spiritual awareness, what I have come to learn is she calls it her group, I call it my committee. Same thing. They are all aspects of various parts of our cellular history of our group. They are all us in different forms. We are not just one being. Our soul is so huge. Think of the sun and all the rays coming off the sun. Well, our soul looks like the sun, only larger, and it has all these rays of itself shooting off into all these dimensions of time. And so these are all aspects of, this was a piece of Grace's soul who said, "Hey, it's time for me to go back to earth and be reborn again." And she felt that leaving, when you felt him leave, Grace, you felt like you were losing a piece of yourself, because it was a piece of yourself, only you weren't losing it. It was just getting reborn. So this is why plugging into your group, is very, it's an excellent idea, because you get to meet all these other aspects of yourself. Some of them are good. Some of them still need healing. Some of them still need a lot of work. But, when you ask for the ones who are your helpers to be there for your particular thing you're looking for help with, they will show up, because you have commanded them forward and they're you. So of course they're going to be there.
I appreciate that explanation. It doesn't dull the loss, but I appreciate that.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. I get it. Yeah.
You know, Alexander had his own spiritual home team, and that did kind of affect him. And I have a feeling that Martinique really kind of participated in some of those decisions that he was making. And I don't know yet, but I just have to wait and find out if she kind of feels maybe potentially bad at the outcome because she was part of the decision process. So I think that one other question sort of kind of comes to mind, maybe, which is maybe Alexander needs some more spiritual therapy before we kind of put him away. You know, I kind of take this past life out and I have interacted with him, but really I need to sort of finish up and sort of put him back into his box because his emotions and his vulnerability and aspects of him is something that cannot be with me on a regular basis.
Right. Right.
Welcome back, listeners, to episode number 9. Last episode, as you know, we had so many questions, we ran out of time. They have pushed over to today, and some will be about Alexander, and some will be general spiritual questions associated with episode 5, Sacred Spiritual Contracts, or even some of the previous episodes. If you're ready, Kathryn, you can go ahead and ask our first question.
Well, going back a little bit to some of these questions that we've been getting, there was one question that someone wanted to know, who was this queen to you anyway? You seem to have described who other people were from the past into the present time. Do you even know who the queen really is?
I do know who the queen is. And I'm just going to mention, listeners, that sometimes people will say to me, you know, you remember past lives. I'll say yes. And they'll say, I don't remember any. And I'll say, bless you. Because sometimes remembering times, places, trauma, and the people, the characters, and the personalities that are there can lead to a challenge in your life that you're totally not anticipating. For me, this is the queen. And I cannot reveal who she is because she doesn't remember at all this past life. And I feel it's kind of my ethic to protect her privacy because this person isn't the queen. This person is an entirely different personality. And if in her life she's meant to remember this and the veil of memory and awareness should change for her, I would be there to help her. But at this moment, it's wrong of me to reveal who she is. So thank you for asking. But on this particular topic, the queen will remain a secret.
All righty. Okay, the next question that came in was, can you describe more of the town where Alexander was living in when he was in Rome?
I can to a degree. When Alexander went from the palace to his house, I have almost no memory of that. It happened so fast and his mind was so scattered. I didn't really get any impression from him. But when he went from his house to his father-in-law's house and he was walking, in the back of his mind, he was thinking, maybe my wife just wasn't home. Maybe they haven't taken her. Maybe I'm entirely wrong in this situation. Really, it was a hopeful thought. As he walked across town, he was looking for her. So I can express some of the things that ran through his mind that popped out for me like, oh, that's different. I've not seen that before. And I'd be happy to do that. You know, one thing that I've noticed about past lives, and those of you that have had memories of them, is that the sky is blue. The night is black. The stars are the stars. And if you didn't know where you were at, you would just think that you were in any other town. And this is true of that. So it was a nice day when he left his house, although it became different by the time it became dark. And I'll just mention for a second that Rome was a really violent place. So he was always kind of on his guard. But as he's walking across town, he is sort of aware. I'm sort of really aware, not so much him. I'm aware that love, family, work, social status are all kind of the same, whatever time frame that you're in. So I'm seeing people walking together, adults holding the hands of children. I'm seeing lovers holding hands. I'm seeing just what would be kind of a normal town. But one thing that pops out for me, well, a couple of things actually, but the first thing is I see a musical instrument that's being played by some street entertainers. And it's not an instrument that I've seen before. Not that I have a vast knowledge of musical, type instruments, but it kind of is different than a lyre. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but the instrument that was common in that time, it's not as wide and it's more tall, but it has a sound like a harp. So as this person is playing it, it's really the melody and the sound reminds me of a harp. And I really kind of look at that as myself as we pass. But it's tall and slender. There are 5 strands on it that this person is playing, but it's not as long as, it's not like a guitar, and it's not like a cello or anything like that. It's more portable. So this person is carrying it. I don't know what it's called. The next thing that I noticed that was different than our time is it's a place to buy street food, but I'll try to explain it. It kind of looks like, to me, as like a bus stop where it's covered. You walk in one side and you walk out the other side. But in the center, there are big vats of food that are lined up on this concrete, and it's long. It's maybe 10 or 15 feet long. And you walk in the beginning and you pay your money and you go through and you get your food, and then you come out the other end with your food. And there's a person there as well to, kind of, like a greeter, but the exit greeter sort of thing, making sure that everything is okay and that you've gotten everything that you needed. So I really kind of noticed that because I noticed the smell, and it smells really good. And I'm really kind of attracted and curious. I really want him to stop for a second and walk over and actually look at the food, because I'm a food kind of a person. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what they're serving there, actually. Mm-hmm. But we're just passing it up, and we're continuing to head for my father-in-law's. So those are the couple of things that I notice. And things that you probably have already been taught about Rome, togas and things like that. And, the bigger, heavier wagons that are being used, and the way that the animals are, the harnesses on the animals, and the way that those things are, which are much different than we're currently using in modern times, certainly. Ours are a lot more lightweight and a lot more fancy and festive. And theirs are a lot more like well-made, hardcore, that are going to last you for hundreds of years. Certainly beyond the life of these animals, it's really apparent that they've been used before. And so that's what I have. That's all that I can really see as we've crossed town, because by this point we're at my father-in-law's house, and I'm disattached. I'm focused on what's happening in front of me.
Oh, thank you for that great description.
Another question that came from a few listeners was, how did Alexander feel about being a paid assassin? He said that he loved his job, and that just felt very strange to me. Well, really, to be honest, he considered himself a very ethical man. He was not the man who was going to, like the other gladiators, torment people, pull off fingers, rip off skin, and some of the other horrendous things. Bearing in mind that Rome was a really, really violent place.
Yeah, it was very violent.
It was very violent.
Mm-hmm.
And these sorts of things were for entertainment. But he considered himself very ethical. He felt like by standing his ground and saying, no, I'm going to kill you very quickly, would set him aside, and it would kind of absolve him of any kind of negativity. As long as he had the mind to be professional, he considered himself a professional. And so when he said he loved his job, he loved that aspect of his job, not the murdering aspect, but the aspect of ethic and responsibility that he felt mattered so much to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of set him aside. Nobody else around him felt that way. Nobody else saw it that way. Perhaps the queen saw it that way, and maybe that's what made her so mad. She decided to hurt him the only way that she could hurt him, because there was really only one way that you could hurt him, and that was through his wife.
Right.
Yeah, I just have to wonder if there was her entire goal was to hurt him on a very personal level. So I really don't know the background story with her there, but I think that it had to do with his ethics, or at least him seeing himself above all others in this ethics kind of category.
Mm-hmm.
Kathryn, people have had a lot of questions about Alexander and the trauma that he experienced. And maybe our next step is to do a live spiritual therapy healing session related to Alexander before we kind of put him away. What are your thoughts?
I think that's an excellent idea, because that's the whole premise behind past life therapy. It's not only helping to heal the person having the experience in the here and now, but to also help those aspects of themselves be able to heal and therefore not carry it on into another cellular experience somewhere else. So yes, I'm up for it. Let's give it a go.
Well, this is going to be exciting, folks. So we'll see you next time. Our live spiritual therapy. Welcome to episode 10, our live spiritual therapy for Alexander and myself by definition. Kathryn, you're going to be on the hot seat today. Can you heal Alexander?
Well, we certainly can give it our best shot. Are you willing to then get back into Alexander and help be the mediator between Alexander and myself?
Yes.
Okay. So let's take it from there. So are you ready to get started?
Yes. Let me put one foot into his shadow so that I can connect with him again. We're ready.
All right. So first of all, I want you to really relax, Grace. Really relax your belly and your shoulders, and just allow yourself to be fully in your own presence, Grace's presence. And what you're going to do is be consciously aware of this extension of yourself and see him separate from you as Alexander. So as you do that, allow yourself to become very aware of how Alexander is in the moment. So Alexander, can you please tell Grace so Grace can share with me how you're feeling right now after going through the experiences you've had and ending your contracts, and everybody was at peace with everything on the other side. How are you?
I'm still really angry. I still feel betrayed.
By the Queen?
By the Queen specifically, but for some other reason, I'm feeling betrayed by a different aspect.
Would you share that, please?
There's a part of Alexander that's showing me betrayal and that trust is very overrated, and that he's having a big conflict between the trust and the betrayal because of this other aspect. So this aspect we need to figure out, because otherwise he's not going to be at peace.
So, Alexander, please tune in to what this aspect is that is bothering you so much. What can you tell me about it?
He's saying so much was taken away. It was an entire loss of a life. It was the loss of relationships. It was the breaking of promises. Almost nothing ended up right in that life. And there's one thing he keeps showing that is the worst of the thing. And when I plug in Queen, it falls out. So it's not the Queen, although he's very angry at the Queen. That is not the thing.
So let's go back, Alexander, to contracts. Just as the people who had asked you to murder them, because that would end the karmic wheel they were on, and they were very grateful to you afterwards, you also made contracts about losing relationships, about a life not being fulfilled because there was a purpose, a spiritual purpose to helping you grow and become even more of who you really are. So from that event, if you can, raise yourself up, get above what happened in the physical world and look at it from a spiritual aspect. What was it that you were meant to learn from having gone through these experiences in the big picture?
This is the question that I think I've asked myself 1,000,000 times as to why and what benefit. And I've tried to tease out a benefit, but he's blaming someone.
Okay. Who is he blaming? Alexander? Where are you pointing the finger?
It started in our spiritual meeting. There was someone that was there. They didn't fulfill their contract.
Okay.
They were supposed to save him. They were supposed to stop this. It wasn't the Queen. The Queen was supposed to be the Queen and do what she was doing, but it wasn't supposed to go that far. This other being was supposed to intervene. They were supposed to stop it.
And so by them not fulfilling their contract, what happened to them?
He's saying they left, like as in vacant.
Okay.
There was a space that was left open that they weren't there. So when he stood in that long hallway looking at that sword and that mirror that was there, part of his anxiety that he was expressing was on this, he was sort of waiting for this, that he would be saved. It would be stopped. It wouldn't finish. And there was nobody there. He was alone.
Okay, Alexander, that's a hard place to be. However, everything happens for a reason. And this person did not fulfill their contract. And as a result, they have become indebted to you. And so what is important here is, if you want to really truly let them go, because this is not a piece that can be trusted, and just wish them well and be done with the contract that you had with him, then it will set you free from the anger, and it will allow you to be reunited with your allosophenia and with the beings, your parents, the ones that you love so much and wish to be with. They're just a breath away. So let's go, if you're willing, to take that piece of the contract with that particular being and throw it into the spiritual fire and say, I am done with you. Go be with God. So, Alexander, allow yourself to be done with this contract, realizing this person did not have the capacity to fulfill it. You are not a victim. In the universe, there's no such thing as victims. There are only participants. You got to play that role, but it doesn't mean that's your identity. So allow yourself to just take a deep breath, call forth the contract between you and him, and say, I am done, and I release you to your highest and best good. Go be with God. We are complete. Can you do that?
We're going to have to do that because Grace doesn't want to know who this is. Okay? Because for you folks that have not had a past life memory that has so much trauma, and yet you know more than half of the people in that life I'm with right now, it's taken me a lifetime to make peace with everybody that's here, and it's really a fragile peace. And to know that there is possibly a person in my life that could have stopped all of this, I don't want to know.
And I think that is so wise. And that's a good point, that we don't need to know everything, that it's better oftentimes if we don't. Spirit knows who they are, what they are. The soul knows. Let that be good enough. Let it be complete. So give it over to the hands of Alexander and let Alexander toss it into the violet flame.
Okay, can you repeat that? And he's willing to repeat this.
All right, Alexander. There was a beautiful violet, deep azure blue flame in front of you. That is a very high spiritual flame. And you're going to take the contract between you and whoever this person was. We don't need to know. And you're just going to hold it. And you're going to say, in order to bring me peace.
In order to bring me peace.
Here and now.
Here and now.
I now release you forever.
I now release you forever.
Into the hands of the divine.
Into the hands of the divine.
Go be with God.
Go be with God.
And know we are complete.
And know we are complete.
Now toss the contract into that beautiful flame and watch it burn into stardust. And know that this is forever finished. All the betrayal issues went with it. And now tell me, Alexander, how you feel.
Less like he wants to murder somebody, because that was his first reaction, was he was spiritually going to go track them down. Mm-hmm. And I've been holding on to him. I've been sort of keeping him in a box of sorts.
Well, Alexander, you need to know that by doing that, it doesn't allow you to grow spiritually, and it creates more karma for you to have to go through being betrayed over and over again until you learn the lesson. And the lesson that you were to learn from all of this is what? Because this is what will set you free. If you understand why you had to have this betrayal issue, then you are free.
I don't know.
Okay, so take a moment and look. Let's understand that there is no person anywhere, whether it's on this planet, off planet, wherever it is, that can 100% totally support us in our thoughts, in our wishes. They all have their own journeys they too must take. No one person is put on the planet to totally become a mirror of you and serve you 100%. So by learning about betrayal, was it not that many of the great ones also had to go through betrayal? The biggest spiritual leaders known to us on this earth all had to experience some type of betrayal. Correct?
Yes.
That frees them then to be a totally spiritual guide, to have an evolutionary awareness that there is no such thing in the spirit world as betrayal. It's all about relying on you and source and having no one in between you and source. And so by knowing that this crucifixion that you went through, because it was a crucifixion, you and Alicephenia went through being crucified, it allowed you to then become what has been known in the past as spiritual martyrs for the good of the whole, so that this can be a way of understanding, a way of teaching, a way of being in service to the many instead of the few. It's only the highest of souls that have to go through this kind of crucifixion process. And you were chosen. That tells me something about who you really are. And now you just need to accept that and remember it when you can. It takes a while sometimes, but to see in that sword, you had a mirror in that sword, and to look in that now, and instead of seeing the fright, see the light, see the greatness. You had to be a great being in order to do this. You were a great being on the planet. You were very powerful. You were very strong. You did what you needed to do. And now it's even more so in the realm of spirit. See the truth in that mirror instead of the betrayal. See the ultimate spiritual truth of the soul of who you really are. Now let me know how you're feeling.
He's feeling much better. He's feeling much more relaxed. He's going to make a big effort.
So, okay. So because of your desire to move forward, I want you to look off to your right, Alexander, and see coming through that doorway is your beloved. She can now rejoin you.
Okay, so he's gone. he's just went to that's it. He's gone.
Yep. That's what he was waiting for, was to
He's
be
been
rejoined
waiting for
with her. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can feel his heart just gone now.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Thank you. Much thanks.
And so, Grace, how are you feeling, Grace?
Whooped, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very, very tired. very kind of exhausted here.
Mm-hmm. That is because this is important for our listeners to understand. It is because you were carrying his angst, his anger in your body, his energy. That was creating a lot of tension in your own physical form and emotional form and mental. And as a result of that, now that he's gone, you can see how much adrenaline you had been putting out because of him. And now your body can recoup and begin to heal, and your mind and your emotions. It's exhausting to carry around another aspect's frustration and anger and anything that they're going through. So that's exactly as it should be. And that says to me that Alexander was healed and you are complete with him.
I definitely feel unloaded, if that makes any sense.
Right. And it could take up to 3 days to fully get your own energy back. So just be easy with yourself. Try not to push yourself too much. Be very kind of in your own little space, in your own little bubble while you gather back all of Grace's energy.
I'm going to make a big effort at that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Certainly he appreciates it. Even though he didn't stay here to say thank you, he left. I'll express his sentiments. He was happy. He was quite happy to be reunited.
And that's thanks enough. That is really wonderful that happened, because that's exactly what was needed.
Thank you, listeners, for coming along on my journey today. And thank you. I hope that some of you independently got some healing out of Kathryn's words. And we're always here for you. If you have further questions, you can find us on different social medias. And definitely here as a resource for all of you. Thank you to all of our listeners. If you have enjoyed our frequency journey today, please share it with your family and friends. Make sure to visit us at clovistia.com, or you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, where we have about 1 million followers over there. Until next time, please share your frequency.